Welcome to the Diary 101 podcast. I am your host, Akakandelwa Kandepwe, also known as Aka. Today's guest is somebody I have admired ever since I was a child. I think she's a person that we have all seen growing up, and I am quite excited to see how this conversation unfolds. So today I'm joined by a seasonal public servant, lawyer, and former cabinet minister whose career has spanned from leadership roles in the Zambian government. From the energy to communication and health sector, she's now an author. Please welcome Dr. Dora Siliya. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, my lady. Good morning. And it's such a pleasure to be invited. I never take these things for granted. I always feel so humbled, whenever I'm invited, especially by young people, to share some stories from my life.
We wouldn't say just some stories. Like I mentioned in my introduction, I saw you growing up. That's a good thing for a young woman. I think that when I was growing up and I would see you on TV, you are a very well-spoken woman. And when I met you last year, I was like, yes, I finally get to meet this lady who has somehow, I might not have admitted it earlier years when watching you on TV, but has inspired so many of us young women where we are. So thank you so much for the service you have done for us as women and the country at large.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well received.
When you look back on your life, did you ever imagine yourself to have been where you were at the peak of your career? That is, as a cabinet minister and servicing the country.
I was very clear where I was going to be in my life at this point in time, today in February of 2026. I just didn't know how I would get here, but I was very, very clear that I was going to, God willing, live for me a fulfilled life, full of family, full of friends, full of hard work, full of ambition, full of, pursuing what I like to do. I heard you refer to the pinnacle of my career as being a cabinet minister. For me, being a daughter every day is a pinnacle of my life. Being a mother is a pinnacle of my life. Being a grandmother now is a pinnacle of my life. My work changes all the time. Getting my PhD was such a pinnacle of my life. Teaching young people now as a qualified lecturer is a pinnacle of my life. Writing my memoir was, oh wow, I can't believe I'm even able to do this. So I wake up every day, especially that we are recording during this Lent period. I wake up with such gratitude every day and say, God, to breathe is enough. But you gave me talent to do so many other things. So I went to school with very ambitious girls, and I was always very sure that I was going to do something with my life. I just didn't know what. But whatever it is, today in February 2026, I am very content at 55 years. I'm a daughter, a grandmother, a politician, a former cabinet minister, a former MP, an author, a lecturer, a motivational speaker, a researcher, a business person, a friend. I am just happy with everything.
What I'm learning about you and what I've learned from our previous conversations leading up to this is you are defining your success in different terms. I, for one, would think your success looking outside in was being a cabinet minister and servicing the country. And listening to you speak on how your success has just been being a daughter, a mother, a granddaughter, a friend, a mentor, a lecturer, an author, that everything else that us from the outside think was your peak of your life is not. So how do you define your success over the years as you have evolved as a person?
my success was, first of all, based on the fact that, look, I probably had good parents that shepherded me in a particular direction. We did not agree all the time, but I came from a home where I felt loved, where I felt happy. I really grew up feeling happy, I must say, with my siblings and my parents. There was not much drama. I was lucky enough to have gone to school those days at Lusaka Girls and Kablonga Girls with very, very bright girls. All my friends most of them have done very well. They are surgeons, pilots, engineers, lecturers, researchers. Most of my friends have been first. So I think when they say that we know you by your friends, I am a great example, because all my friends have done quite well. I was in class with Dr. Chituo. I think she's one of the earliest doctors from my group in this country. I went to a girl who was to school with one of the girls who was the first female pilot in Zambia. Some of my friends like Marama Munkonge, an engineer, a water engineer. So the former ZEDAR deputy commissioner was also a very good friend of mine, Patricia. Went to school together. So there've just been so many. Mary Ambayamba Kazilemani, the accountant. So I think, as they say, that, you were thrown on good soil. We fell on good ground. So we probably did fall on good ground. We're the first generation of women after our mothers from independence who were in independent Zambia. I was born in 1970. We thought the women's movement was just getting a rebirth globally. So we were born in the right decade at the right time, when those who came before us, the Inonge winners, the Gladys Mutukwas, the Dr. Inongo Mbikusita Lewanika, and all those women were fighting for women's liberation. We are the generation that enjoyed it, because they had done the work. Of course, much work needs to be done. So how do I define my success? I think that benefiting from everything else and the work other women have done, I define my success as I had an opportunity to do whatever I wanted to do. When I was at the University of Zambia, I was lucky enough to be one of the very few young people in this country who had a full-time job, but at the same time, I was straight from school, 1988, to University of Zambia, 1989, and yet I was given a full-time job at ZNBC when I wanted a part-time job. That for me was such a success, because it was unheard of those days in Zambia in 1989. Soon after university, in my third year, when I applied to Cambridge University, they accepted me based on my third-year results and told me I should just share the final results with them. It was such a success for me, but I was surrounded by people who encouraged me to do that because they thought I was bright. I am glad that when I went to the university, first I was accepted in the School of Natural Sciences as one of the clever kids. It was only later on that I pivoted. That for me was success. I thought, let me try. I could do it, even though I was not interested in being a doctor. But I was able to prove that I'm bright enough to go in the School of Natural Sciences. Up to date, my favorite subject is actually mathematics, which people find very strange. I was a diplomat very young at 31. I mean, for me, that was such a success. Oh my God, there I was, straight from England, working for the EU. Then I pivoted into politics. I don't win the elections the first time, but President Monawasa then was kind enough to, or at least forward-thinking enough to say, here's a young lady who is bright, let's give her a chance. And I go into the diplomatic world. It was, for me, it's really one of my successes, being a minister 35, 36. Now I hear the minister in Botswana who's 27 years old. I'm like, wow, just like I stood on the shoulders of those that came before me, other young women are standing on my shoulders and other women in my generation. And now it looks normal. My only advice is that, yes, the job is one thing, but but to be prepared for the job is another thing. And for me, development work exposure through ZNBC and education, both at the University of Zambia and Cambridge, prepared me at 35, 36 years old to be a minister who actually understood the job. That 2 years later, at 37, I was promoted to a full cabinet minister from a deputy minister. I don't think it happened by chance. It was because I was prepared for that office and I took the job very seriously. Being a minister in 6 ministries over 18 years, it was just unbelievable. But one of my most humbling successes for me was being a member of parliament for Petauke, because all I wanted from the very beginning was to represent people to whom much has been given by God. I think that we owe it to the community, to others around us, to say, how can we help other people's lives? If I achieved one thing in Petauke, it's to hope that a father, a mother, a child, whether it's a boy or girl, can believe now that it is possible for them to transform their lives, to change their lives, to be anything they can dream of. Yes, I was not born in Petauke, but I just hope that by my being member of parliament there, I showed them what is possible, that they have to dream beyond their dreams. Their dreams should scare them. You can be anything in life if you put your mind to it. I hope that is what I left the people of Petauke with. Beyond the physical infrastructure, I hope that what I left them with is a mindset change, that if you invest in your children, you give them support, they can be anything. So there's so many successes. That's why I can't define myself by just being a cabinet minister. Everything I do in my life, I do with passion because I like it. I like to cook, so I do it with passion. I like TV and radio, so whenever I have an opportunity to do a program, a podcast, I will do it because I like to do it. I do the things that I really like. I like to teach, so I prepared myself, went through the process, did the postgraduate teaching methodology, so I could teach with confidence and not just by the way. So everything I do for me is a success as long as I've chosen to do it. I do it passionately. Of course, not that one doesn't fail at certain things. There are certain things you do. I've never learned how to play chess. For some reason, I've just never learned how to play chess. When I was young, I always thought very clever people play chess. I think I tried once, and yet I found the game so boring. I have no interest. And all my clever friends, all my nerd friends at school played chess at Kablonga Girls. I just found it boring, and I thought, no, I'm not doing it. All my friends now play golf. Like, okay, you're 55, you're a grandmother, this is what you should be doing. I don't like golf. I enjoy watching it on TV, but I find it boring to be walking for hours on the golf course. I like to play tennis. Teaching my grandson tennis at the tennis club I used to go to from 13 years old myself at Lusaka Club was the most humbling for me, a great success. It was just, wow. I was on this court at 13 years old, and now I'm teaching my grandson, who was at that time 4.5, 5 years, and I've been teaching him tennis there and playing with him. It's just such a feeling of success, you know. I love books, to see my grandson, the big one, reading. It's just a feeling of success. So I think we should not define success purely. It's important to be ambitious and have the right jobs and, be ahead of your peers. But I think if I had just turned out to be a doctor, I'd feel very happy. If I had turned out to be the engineer some of my friends wanted me to be, I'd still have been happy. The politics at that time happened by chance, but when they did, I gave it my all, because that's how I define success. Doing something to the full, being prepared, doing it well, and having no regrets.
I like everything you've mentioned. I think that sometimes we like to think that our success is when we reach the peak of our careers, not thinking that we are successful in different ways and forms, because there are different types of success that one will experience in their lifetime. I loved something that you mentioned earlier, which was you're born in the 1970s, and all the things you achieved was on the shoulders of the women before you. And this is one of my favorite things to talk about because now I realize and appreciate what the women before me did, especially my grandmother, who has walked different careers in life and has made sure that I did got the best schools. My grandparents anyway, but my grandmother, because I did got the best schools. We're not having enough conversations. I feel that we're not having enough conversations of what the women before us have done and the way that us as the young women, the world would like to create for the next generation. What are some of the trends that you have noticed when it comes to women and building each other, and what do you think is your role and the next generation role into building a safe environment for young women in the future?
I remember being invited to a conference for women in politics in Valencia, in Spain, in 2010. And there were women there that I was so humbled that I could be in the same room with them. Wangai Matai, Gracia Machel, the first female president of Chile, the current EU Investment Bank CEO. Before that, she was at the IMF. I mean, there were women in that room in 2010, and I was only 40 years old at that time as Minister of Education. And I felt so small, but at the same time, so proud, because I heard the stories that these women were talking about, how they had fought all their life to be recognized in families, in their communities, in politics, in their jobs, and so on and so forth. And for me, the thread was always that they were prepared for the occasion. You know, like in the Bible, it is born for such a time like this. And Wangai Matai, who won the Nobel Prize for her work in Kenya in support of the environment. I mean, I met with her and I was just in awe that how can a person be so passionate about something, so passionate, this African woman, that she ended up winning the Nobel Prize. My own grandmother, who never went to school, but educated all her 6 children, 5 girls and 1 boy. My grandmother, and it is on her shoulders that I stand. I mean, her life was difficult in the 40s, 50s, 60s, growing up in the village with no piped water, without health and education services nearby. In fact, her and her mother, my great-grandmother, made a decision to move from the initial village so far away in Chief Sandwe to come nearer to Chief Nyambande so that their children could go to school. They never went to school, but they understood the importance. And so my grandmother's children, all the women became teachers and nurses. And these are women who were born in the village from nothing. And in the end, my mother became a teacher in Kitwe after finishing her college. So it is on her shoulders that I stand. And she represents, my mother and my grandmother, they represent how the women's movement, how the women in society in our country have changed. But even as I became of age in the late 80s, 90s as a teenager, and in my 20s, I realized that we still had much work to do. Women being respected at places of work, women being respected in a social environment. It was in my age group that it became normal for that women can walk into a bar and have a drink on their own, buy their drinks and walk out. In my mother's age, they never went to a bar by themselves. It should have been considered inappropriate. It's in my age group that we fought to say we needed to dress how we wanted to dress. And if we want to wear mini dresses because we are young and we've got good bodies, it does not mean we're prostitutes. I spent all my life at a tennis club in short skirts, so it was very normal for me. It was in my age group that we said we could dye our hair blonde, and I wore my hair blonde for many years, even up to today, just to make the point. It doesn't represent, oh, that's a crazy girl. No, I'm one of the most clever people, but it was just to prove the point that girls, when they're young, they should be able to do these things, because when they mature, nobody will tell you that stop doing this, stop wearing miniskirts. You'll feel it yourself that, oh no, I've put on weight, oh God, this size now, I can't wear very short things. When you're young, you need to enjoy your life, but enjoy it responsibly. It is in my age group that we've been able to say we can get into boardrooms. If a woman wants to be a housewife, that is good, because looking after, being a homemaker is a very serious job. The family is dependent on it. But if you're going to be out in the working world, that it's also your choice. But you must be prepared for the sacrifices you make. You're not going to get to the top of a bank, of politics, or any top job by not sacrificing something. And that society should be okay with it. There are women now who are not even having children, making that decision in my age group. Even women younger than me, who are saying, for me to survive working for JP Morgan, for these international organizations, I have to be at work all the time. I've missed the opportunity to have children or to get married. It's okay. We should celebrate their decisions. It shouldn't, to me, in a one sentence, what being empowered as a woman is about is to have choices. The worst is a woman who has no choice. She has no choice what to do with her life, if she can go to school, if she can have children, if she can get married, if she can be ambitious, if she can, start a business. When you don't have a choice, that's when you are not empowered. But if you have a choice, and we must always defend the choice for women to do different things. We all can't do the same thing, but we must always defend the choices that we make and other women make, the things that make them happy. We must always defend their choices, because that is what is empowerment. Of course, within reasonable limits, and that it doesn't hurt other people. But being empowered is to have choices in your life.
Thank you so much for that. And you mentioned something critical, is you are the first women of your generation to be able to wear whatever color hair you wanted. And to be honest,
the red lipstick. When I grew up, women never wore red lipstick. It was thought of as, oh my God, who wears red lipstick? And I wore it on TV every day, and I made it a brand.
I wanted to say that thank you so much. My favorite hair color is pink. And I think for the past 10 years, I've been thriving in different hair colors. I'm glad to know you created such a safe space for the rest of us, because I'm always saying, hey, it's just color. It's, for me personally, it's not that deep. And being in the corporate space now and being able to navigate it with my color hair sometimes has been such an interesting journey, I might add, but it's been so much fun. And I hope that the next generation, if I stop wearing hair color, they can do that as well. So you really have mentioned very important aspects of what the next generation is going to anticipate, and what you have done and the women with you and before you have done for this generation, which is something we're grateful for. And I hope anyone listening to this really does highlight that. And I think you're the first woman I have seen on TV who was Zambian at that time, when I was following politics that was well spoken. My mom would always say that whoever is going to become the Minister of Health has to be as well spoken as Dora Siliya, because when you would speak, you would speak. And I think it was also the peak of COVID. That was my highlight. I look back to it and I'm like, yes, ma'am, please talk on the behalf of the women. Because as a young woman, seeing another woman speak opens my mind to different perspectives of life, and actually say, oh, I can actually do that. I might not have admitted it then, but now I look at you and I'm like, yes, you've inspired me to want to learn how to speak better, to create platforms that amplify women and young people. When you look back on your life in public service, what's something people misunderstood about you?
I think it's something they misunderstand about a lot of women, that a woman should only be ambitious to a certain level. Beyond that, then no. She's away from the usual pack of women. When whether it's in politics, it's in business, in any field. There's almost like a social ceiling that no, a woman, you should only be ambitious to a certain level. So I can, speaking for my own life, I think that I sort of always broke the ceiling, and you'll always find that your colleagues, the female, they become uncomfortable, and so do the men. They also become uncomfortable. I mean, you can imagine me being a diplomat at 30, 31. I'm young. I feel good. I've got a nice body. I dress like a young person in an environment of usually very old people, though I thought that I was quite bright, I was intelligent, I was educated, but I'm sure sometimes my own immaturity came through, and it probably made people very uncomfortable. And I always took advantage of the fact that I was usually the young one, and I could speak my mind. But my caution to young people is always that you have to be prepared, you have to work hard, and you must know what the consequences are. So you have to learn working politics very quickly, not just electoral politics, but politics in a work environment. There will always be politics. People always want you to fail, so you must always do the best that you can. That's why for me, I tell people, even if you have been asked to do something that is just 1 minute, do it well. Do it so well. Don't just, and don't become comfortable and just say, oh, I do this all the time. No. Do it well. One of the best compliments I got was from Speaker Manamwambwa in 2007 on the floor of Parliament. And that was a deputy minister, filling in for Honorable Mutati then, who was my cabinet minister. And when I finished answering the questions that morning, the speaker said to the House, if all of you answered questions in this House, like the Deputy Minister of Commerce, Honorable Dora Siliya, I think that this House would really, serve the people of Zambia. It is one of the greatest compliments I've ever received. I was 37 years old. I think the youngest, well, if not the youngest, I know I was definitely the youngest minister, but I don't recall if there was another younger MP in the House at that time, a female. But it's one of the greatest compliments I've received. And that's because I take every work I am given seriously. To look confident in public, it's because behind you have done the work, you are prepared, and you don't take anything for granted. Of course, I've not always been like that, but I've learned a work ethic in my life now over the years that I always share with young people, that you must work hard. So being misunderstood, I think for me was always that, one, I wanted to shine, I wanted to work hard, I wanted to do the right thing. If it made other people uncomfortable, it was not my problem. I always wanted to be clean, stylish, dress well. Maybe I'm not trendy, but I think I've always been stylish all my life. I prefer. Another great compliment I got was a guy just saying, Dora Samba. I'm like, yes. I take every day seriously. I'll advise young girls, please don't leave the house looking like you're wearing pajamas, you're wearing house slippers. No. If you're going to the supermarket, my mother used to say, you don't know the day you meet the man you marry. So please, don't leave the house I go into the supermarket these days, I see young girls like, are you wearing a pajama? What's on your head? I mean, like, seriously. And you're not doing it for other people. You're not even doing it for men. You're doing it for yourself. It's your self-confidence. It is your brand. When we're growing up and say, oh my God, Maureen Nkandu is so famous. Oh my God, Dora Siliya is so famous. Oh my God, Grace Msmuko is so famous, and we're on radio and TV. Imagine with the internet, but we could be well known the whole country. That is how big our brands were. Today, it's so easy for anybody without much achievement to say, oh, they are known because they're on the internet. So the competition is even worse now. So for you to stand out, you must really first know your craft, prepare whenever you're doing whatever it is you're doing, and do it well so that we can notice you and appreciate it, because everybody now thinks they can do it. So, we were really misunderstood, not just me, many of us, for me, from ZNBC, from straight into politics. And I think one of the reasons was because I was new. I was a pioneer in my own way. It was doing something for the first time, being a university girl on TV, on radio, being a young diplomat, being a young minister. It was inconceivable in people's minds. Like, how is that possible? How is it that she can be a diplomat? Well, because I was confident enough to go to the president and say, I want to run for parliament. I want to run. I would like to be considered for diplomatic service after I failed to get to parliament the first time. That to get to that level, I had sort of training. First of all, from my household, that my parents made me believe I can do anything. Secondly, that I had confidence because I had had the training from university, going to England and so on. Then thirdly, I think that the fact that I was at university and then I had this job on TV gave me exposure many people would not have had. So all those things, they say chance favors the prepared. All those things prepared me to a point where I was able to sit in front of a president and say, I am young, I'm educated, I'm female. I think you should consider me to run for parliament. It was personal ambition, but it was being in the right place at the right time because I was prepared. And for many people, they misunderstood all that. How is it possible that you're so young and you can be a cabinet minister? I mean, they wanted to find a good reason. No, she must be somebody's girlfriend. She must be a president's girlfriend. How can every president who appointed me, how could I have been their girlfriend? But it was the easy choice for people.
Yeah.
But it was the easy choice for people in their mind because I had taken such quantum leaps and left everybody basically behind that it was so inconceivable for them that this could have just happened out of ambition, hard work. So it was easy to say, no, she must be somebody's girlfriend. I mean, how is it possible? So I had to prove myself that, yes, this blonde face, blonde head, this red lipstick face, this long red nails, there's also a brain that works hard. So I had, on behalf of all the young women coming behind me, I had to make sure that I did the job so well that in the end, I'll be honest with you, people noticed and said, no. Actually, Dora Siliya man. So it was a good thing because that is how I was able to be promoted from deputy minister to full minister. Because even at parliament, the speaker said, no. When she answers questions, I think all of you should take a leaf and learn from her. He said this in public on radio for everybody to hear. And that is the validation I needed. That no, I don't have this job by chance. To be elected in Petauke 4 times, I mean, would I bribe all the voters? No, it's because they saw the work I did. They saw that I'm a problem solver. I tell young people, you want to be a leader, but first you must lead yourself. You must say to yourself, can I communicate effectively? Because if you can't communicate, it's not just at parliament, even in your own just life, your job, your corporate world, if you cannot communicate, you're not a leader. If you don't know how to give feedback and receive feedback, you're not a leader. If you don't know how to de-escalate conflict, if you're a person who encourages conflict, you don't know how to encourage conflict resolution, you're not a leader. Today, if you're a person who does not understand professional digital presence, you're not a leader. If you're a person who doesn't understand cultural context, protocol, etiquette, you're not a leader. So when you're looking for leaders, all of you, check these things. Is this person an effective communicator? Is this person a team player? Do they know how to be part of the team? Because being part of the team is to learn how to compromise. It can't be your way all the time. Is this person able to de-escalate conflict, or do they encourage conflict? Is this person able to have professional presence, or do they insult today on social media, tomorrow they want to be an MP? Is this person, do they understand protocol? Because part of being a leader is also understanding the office above you and on your side and below you. You can't you can't be a leader in a vacuum. You must be a leader where there are people. Even in the family, if you're a leader, it's because you have those qualities. So I worked so hard to understand what leadership is all about. Not that I'm perfect. Oh no, I don't claim to be perfect. But I always tried, whenever I was given a job, whether it was at ZNBC when I was at university, whether it was when I worked for the EU government under private sector development, whether it was when I was a diplomat, or all the times I was a minister in education, in agriculture, in information, in communication and transport, in energy. Every time I had a job, I told myself, first, I must communicate the vision to make sure that the policy of this ministry or this sector is understood, that this is what we are supposed to do for the people of Zambia. Then I can't do it alone. It's teamwork. No, I find it so strange when people expect that the office of the president will solve all problems, because the president today is sitting in Nakonde. So if there's rubbish in Nakonde, there must be leadership there to address those issues. So every place I went to work, I asked myself, I must understand what is the protocol, what is the etiquette. Today there's a new word, netiquette, etiquette on the internet. So we must understand all this. To lead, first you must lead yourself. If you can't lead yourself, how are you going to lead other people? So I knew I was misunderstood, because first, I was always a first. Secondly, I think I tried to work 3-4 times harder than everybody else. But then I was also a young woman. I'm fashionable. I like fashion. So to find all these things in one person, especially a woman, people found it very strange. You're a woman, you're young, you're ambitious, you're bright, you have these big jobs. Oh no, it was very difficult for people to understand. But I'm glad that now and that's why I wrote my book, so I can tell my own story. They say slaves die with words in their mouth. I'm not a slave. I live in a Zambia that people died for, gave their lives for me to be free in this country. So I can tell my own story. And I'm glad that now people have understood that ambition gets you everywhere. Preparation in terms of education will get you there. But confidence, network, eloquence will get you through the door.
You mentioned a lot of things that I found very intriguing, but also something that really resonated with me was people would always assume that as long as it's a woman, if they achieve a certain level of success very quickly, it's because they are, as an assumption, somebody's girlfriend, somebody's pushing for it. And you say that's like one of the easiest ways out for someone. That's the easiest answer, because no one would believe that a woman would be that ambitious and that hardworking to be in that place. And it's something that I actually face a lot ever since I was young. Like, my family knows I'm very hardworking and I'm very ambitious, but then navigating the fact that people would actually assume that, she only got that because she might be somebody's girlfriend. She's young and she's fashionable and she's pretty. It's not that she's smart. What advice would you give to us young women that are facing that as a challenge?
Well, first of all, be smart indeed. And if you have a chance to go to school and educate yourself to the highest level, please do it, because that should speak for you. It should be enough to speak for you. Please do it. But you must also know that, you see, if a man gets into a tantrum, everybody's going to say he's passionate. If you get into a tantrum in a boardroom, they're going, that's women. You see, that's women. Even other women will say that. So we begin to grow and learn how to navigate office politics, boardroom politics, parliamentary politics, constituents politics. You begin to learn how to navigate them. If a man does something silly on the internet, or is a male minister, even the women will forgive it. They'll not think about it. This man, they found him with a girlfriend, or he said this, or people will forget it. Or even when a man is not very bright and he says things that, you are like, how can somebody think like that? People will forgive it. But if it is a woman in a position, everybody, men and women, want to say, how could they do that? How could they think like this? How could they make such a decision? They give you no room for mistakes. They don't want you to grow. I was lucky enough, to be honest, that some of the presidents I worked with as my bosses were leaders, actual leaders, because they understood that young people, they have to be given an opportunity, but they also must be mentored, must be coached. And sometimes when you make a mistake, it's not always dismissal. It's that you must be corrected, you must be advised. And that is what we must do, all of us at all levels of leadership. We must know how to mentor, we must know how to coach, we must know how to correct, we must know how to encourage, how to motivate. Sometimes, yes, you need to dismiss people, but you must make sure that, did they hear you well? Did you give right instructions? Were you communicating effectively? Were you a good team leader yourself? Did you ensure that you de-escalated conflict? Because you must also check yourself before you really say, this junior, I think that there's no more room for them. Either because they're just not bright, or they're just not the perfect fit, or they're just really incompetent that they can't learn. But we must always give people a chance. And I saw that firsthand with presidents, with other colleagues in the private sector, in the development world. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen good leaders, and I know what they're capable of doing. And I wanted to be like them. I've always admired good leaders. I like to read about leadership. Very soon, I'll be giving a course on the 16th of April on effective communication for emerging leaders. It's all about personal leadership development, brand development, about how to work with other people, about issues of protocol and etiquette, about value communication, about conflict resolution. So these are things I feel so passionately about, because that's what we must do every day in our daily work. As leaders, if people accuse you of sleeping with people, I just consider it now small minds, because you must know who you are. I know who I am. I know who my family is. I know my son, his wife. I also actually called Akakandelwa Keki, my new daughter now. So my grandchildren. You must know who you are so well to stand the storm out there. Because nobody will be rooting for you to succeed. Everybody will be rooting for you to fail. And nobody wants to look at you if you're fashionable and you're stylish, and especially if you have pink hair. The first thing that comes to their mind is not that you're bright, is like, what is this nuisance? That's what they're thinking about. So you have to prove everybody wrong. It might take a while, but you have to put in the work. It means read all the time. Have the proper network. Have people who can speak for you when you're not there. That is what helped me navigate the situation. There were voices who would say, no, that girl is very bright and she works hard and you have misjudged her. And especially now in the world of social media, everybody thinks they should have an opinion on you except on themselves. But you have to take out the noise and focus. You have to take out the noise and focus. I'm always sad because there are women who call me, young women, and say their boss openly ask them for sexual favors to be considered for a promotion. It is sad that this is happening 2025, 2026. It is very, very sad. And I think we must feel confident enough, like the Me Too movement, to talk about these things and to call out these people. Bad behavior only thrives when nobody's talking about it, when everybody's hiding. With the power in your hands, young women with social media, you need to call out bad behavior. Society, men and women, always want to call out women. You must call out bad behavior everywhere, in women, in men, and especially men if they're abusing their position of leadership, whether it's in banks, it's in schools, it's in hospitals, it is in politics. We must call them out and say, no. This is not the way to do things. Because there are other women, hoping to stand on your shoulders. So we need to keep clearing the way. We need to keep clearing the way all the time. And I share these stories in my book. It's always sad for me to hear sometimes young girls so depressed because they don't know how to navigate it. So we must share these stories. You must know who you are and be able and feel confident that your family, your friends, your people, your network will protect you from that abuse.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Again, yes, we don't I also realized that there's a lot we don't talk about that happens in the workspace. I talk about it a lot with my family so they understand certain decisions I make. Because sometimes as a young person, they just think it's such a Gen Z thing to do. And I remember on Sunday, my uncle came into the country and he was just asking genuinely about my life and work and business. And I did mention certain things. And he's like, okay, now I get why you said this and that and that. So even for people young people like me, going back, being able to go back home and just talk about the stuff you're struggling with. Sometimes they might think, oh, you're just young and you're overreacting. But then he said something very important, which was, I would like to know how young women actually navigate workspaces, because it's actually hard for you. And I'm like, yes, it is. It's not as easy. So just listening to you speak about everything has been a highlight. Could you just briefly tell me what inspired you to write your book?
I just got to an age when I felt that, look, I have a story to tell. You can get a piece of paper or your laptop and start writing, but what are you going to tell? What is the story? Do you have a story to tell? And I love reading memoirs, and I've read so many people's stories. And I just got to a point where I kept telling these stories to my friends, my family, the things that have happened in my life, at work, in my personal life. And it got to a point where I thought, that let me take charge of my own story, of my own record. In this country, even beyond social media, even qualified newsrooms sometimes want to misrepresent women. And it's very, very sad, because newspapers and all media houses also operate in this same culture and context. And it is sad to see that instead of leading the agenda for protecting women, they'll say, no, we're just saying what everybody else is saying. Things don't change like that in a society. And so I felt that, look, I have grandchildren now at a certain age, especially after over 50, 55 now. I just felt at 52, 53 that a time had come for me to tell my story. I started feeling like I've lived more life than even many people who are 70, 80 years old, I felt that way. I'd probably lived more life than them in things I've done, especially in my workspace, much more than my personal life. But there are so many sacrifices that I've had to endure, some of them not even shared, to be able to say, this is how I wanted my public workspace to be. These were my ambitions. This is what I needed to do. When many young women come to me and say they want to do a PhD, just a few days ago, I was talking to the new cohort of PhD students at Unilas. And I asked many of them, why do you want to do it? And most of them said, no, just for the ego, just to have the title. I said, no, then it might be a bit difficult for you, because to do a PhD took me 5 years. Two of those years I was actually working full time. And then the other 3 I was on sabbatical. It requires you to truly commit mentally and physically and socially, because you have to be selfish with your time. You have to give up seeing your family, your relatives. You miss funerals, you miss hospital visits, you even miss weddings, because that is how committed you have to be to finishing a PhD. So I tell people, really, it's just an issue of us really deciding, especially as women, that what do I want? What story do I want to tell? And if you have a story to tell, it will come. By the time I got to 482 pages of my book, I was very surprised. And very quickly, my cousin came from the Copper Belt and were at my mother's house the week my book came out. And she went quiet for a few minutes. And then suddenly she just said in Bemba, "Iwe Dora, iwe. Don't talk enough. I'm just 482 pages, sure." I'm so shocked. But I felt validated. She's saying, you have a story to tell. 482 pages of a book. So the time must feel right. That do you have a story to tell? To write a memoir is a life story. You can write it at 40. You can write it. You could be Mark Zuckerberg and you've lived your life in influence the whole world at a very young age. Or you could write it at 80 years old, because that is the time you have lived and had a story to tell. I had a story to tell at 50 years old when my book came out, and I've shared the story.
No, thank you so much for sharing your story and also for sharing your wisdom with us today. It's mind-opening and it's nice. Again, I think, I don't say this enough to you, is you're one of my favorite interactions for the year. And my favorite last year was Linda Sunday when I had on the podcast. I told all my friends and said, guys, when we talk about God-given episodes, this is the one. And even for you as well, is I have seen you when I was growing up. I have interacted with you, and I was telling my mom, like, "Who, guess who I'm recording with?" And I was like, I love that lady so much. She's like, I know. So she's in the other room right now. So
but
thank you so much for
question. Let me ask you a question. where do young people
that segment
like
was
yourself
coming,
say,
by the way.
No, I have to ask you this question. I mean, I said to myself, what's the number one challenge for young people? Not just women, but just young people, Gen Zs. What is your number one worry? You say to yourself, okay, this is 2026. By 3031, what is your number one worry for the next 5 years?
I wouldn't say worry. That wouldn't be the right term to.
Well, what is the most scary thing? The most scary thing for you, the most challenging thing that you think you'll encounter going forward? Whatever word you want to use, but what is that thing that scares you about life in general? You're a Gen Z in 2026. What is the scary thing?
Not reaching my full potential, holding back because of what people say about me, or what I think people say about me. That's not reaching my full potential worries me a lot. And that
is this what you're calling the impersonation syndrome or something?
I don't know what I would call it, but that's one thing I worry about, is what if I don't reach my full potential? I ask myself, if I die today, did I really live? Did I live my life to the full potential? Did I do, at 25, did I do everything I was supposed to do in this world? Right? Did I help people? Did I build a successful business? Again, like we mentioned earlier, success is very relative to the person. So what are my KPIs as a person? So I'm always worried that I will not reach my full potential, and I will not I will not let the world experience me at that level, and I wouldn't help people. I think that's what I'm worried about.
And generally, is that what the Gen Z generation is worried about? That everybody wants to be so famous, so rich, so everything.
As a generation, what I notice is that we are such a Gen Z as a getaway card in life. Because even the older generation is using that a lot. It's an excuse for not pursuing certain things. But actually, Generation Z is such a good generation, because we speak our mind, and we are really fighting the status quo on how certain things are done. And I know there's backlash with that, because all generations have been doing certain things a certain way, and this generation is just questioning to say, I don't know if that's worth it. I do want to do that. I do want to work. I just don't know if working for 30 years and getting a pension at the end of that is worth it. So that's why the clash is. I think there's just a clash in generation, and this new technology as well is just disrupting all that, where we're all just I think I can do more, but heading in that direction doesn't look like it's a good fit for me. And the older generation that has the resources and knowledge and past experience, it's well, this is what's on the table. So I do hope that in leadership, everybody can hopefully come at the table and unbox these conversations, even if it's not publicly, but even just in workspaces where we're okay, what do you need? And this is where we're at, and how do we meet at a compromise to build you the future you want, and for us to keep the status quo we want to keep. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting. So you have a voice, the Gen Zs. You might have to acquire the knowledge too, but at the same
Yeah,
time, it's important to recognize that there's disruption and things will
yeah,
not be done always the way they were being done, especially office space. That now,
yeah,
it's a hybrid of office space. People don't work in the office all the time. And it's challenging leadership on how to manage people working in different workspace at home and in the actual physical office on the managing them online. So I
yeah,
hear you, and I think these conversations are very, very important. But with to whom much is given, like the Gen Z generation, with all this
yeah,
technology, all this knowledge, all these opportunities, the knowledge might be there, but you must look for it. You must look for it.
yeah.
And my advice to young people
And
is
I think that
this. Go on, go on.
no, I think that's one of the issues and challenges that the generation is having. And part of my work is that so much information is there, but because it's easily accessed, it's taken for granted and not so much effort is put in. For your generation, you had to seek information, you had to look for it, so you valued it more. We value things less because it's instant. I can search for you, I can text you Dr. Dora Siliya, and I might not get a response. So there's delayed gratification and instant gratification that we're playing with now, and it just in play it shows that certain things do not have to be instant.
And even if they are instant, I think for me, my final word to the Gen Zs is that, look, again, because much has been given, because this technology is making it so easy, it means that actually those that work very hard are the ones that will get ahead. Because I'm an advocate for every young person now from primary must learn research skills, because you're going to have to do all this work yourself. So you must learn how to research. Your phone is the power, but you must learn how to research, because you can be on your phone on TikTok the whole day. You're not doing anything. You're enjoying yourself, but is that what will sustain you in 5 years from today? So now your work ethic, to be able to be self-disciplined, to give yourself time to work, to know how to research, how to use the search engines, to think about the prompt questions. That is the challenge now for Gen Zs, that the information is available, the technology is available, the opportunity is available, but it is the ones that will separate themselves from everybody else are the ones that know how to research, how to prompt the research engines, how to be able to network online. They don't even have to meet people, but have the self-discipline and the work ethic to do the work. There's still going to be work to be done. It looks easy, but there's still thinking to be done for you to get what you need to get done.
I totally agree, and I think they're up to the task.
That's good. I have hope in my country.
Me too. I know you already asked me a question, Doc, but I would like to give you another opportunity to ask me a question. Socially, the Gen Zs, how do they see life? I'm hearing so much about mental illness, about drugs, alcohol. When we were growing up, drinking in our 20s, early 20s, I mean, drinking was probably just once a week on Friday, and we just drank beers because that's all there was in Zambia. I see young girls these days with pot bellies because they can drink whiskeys, they can drink anything they want, amarula. So I'm always saying, and we went to clubs, to the disco. That's where you probably found your boyfriend or your husband. These days, where do you find husbands? Where do you find wives? Where do you find boyfriends, girlfriends? Is it dating apps? Is it because we went to a disco or to a bar? Yeah.
For now, what do you do? Where do you find a husband, a boyfriend, a girlfriend? Are there discos these days?
They're clubs, though.
They're just clubs. Yes. So for me, I've seen such a change in drinking habits, in fun. For us, it was religiously a disco on a Friday and a Saturday. These days, I see clubs, but we left home to go and dance. I mean, to really go and dance. The clubs are for drinking, right?
The clubs also, we dance there. I can't speak for everybody, but I always like to speak on this trend of alcohol abuse and drinking. As when we were growing up, I'm from Western Province, Mongo, right? I came from a space where I had community. Most of my family lived in Mongo. I had a church I was going to. I had a school, so I had certain activities done for me at a specific time. Like I had a whole community around me, and my life was routine. When I moved here, everything was disrupted. Of course, I have family in Lusaka, so my life wasn't disrupted. But for most people, it's very disrupted. If you're from the Copper Belt, you're sent to Lusaka, the University of Lusaka, or the University of Zambia, to university, your life is disrupted. So now you now need to seek new habits or hobbies. So if you're not one like me, when I came here, that a lot of things were settled for me because I have a good community, you now have to find your own community. So if you don't find a church, friends, so you have to find a new church, new friends, what to occupy yourself with without class. You then fall into different segments of your life. So it also has to speak on community and how we're raised. We're raised by a village, but then when the village lets you go, it lets you go on its own. It doesn't really prepare you for what is life after high school, after living with your parents for so long. So maybe this is where the trends come in. It's everybody's just trying to find a way to cope in a new environment. And if an institution or people are not intentional in creating different communities for these young people, that's why there's so much trend in those activities, because no alternative is given. It's easier for me to go clubbing. It's easier for me to smoke because there's nothing else for me to do. If church is
it a
on
big trend,
Sunday,
smoking among young people?
I'm not really sure, but I've heard stories because of my line of work now. Like I've heard a lot of disturbing stories because of my line of work now, and it's because that's the easiest coping mechanism. It's the easiest way out. And we're seeing also other institutions talk about it to say, we need to create different co-curriculum activities to engage time. So in Zambia, we normally just like to drink a lot. Yes, like our favorite hobby is that. But then you could go hiking, you could go reading. So if even now there's a small trend of book clubs, hiking groups and everything. So we need to get more young people in those activities, and then maybe we can find our husbands there. Like find your husband instead of the club, you find your husband at church or at a hiking club, at a book club, that type of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. I mean, I'm always very keen to hear some of the opportunities and challenges that young people are facing. I'm very keen. It's one of my passion. I have a foundation since 2015 called Show You Care. And one of the things there, apart from supporting orphanages and advocating against the abuse of children, it's really to support young women, especially in education, but also to advocate for young people in terms of business, in terms of just the issues that trouble them. And I've seen that drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and mental illness, and even just loneliness and pressures of life, especially for young teenagers and early 20s in universities and colleges, seems to be quite a challenge for a lot of young people, especially moving away from rural areas into Lusaka, into the Copper Belt, and so on. So we have to create villages around each other so that we give each other support.
That's so true. I think if we could create communities around young people, not that it would reduce the drinking, it would probably reduce the drinking, but not take it away. But like you said, it was strictly a Friday, Saturday thing, and now it seems like it's an everyday thing sometimes. So yeah, it's something we could all work towards as a country and people, as individuals anyway. Do our part in it.
Yeah. No, but it's a good time to be alive as a Gen Z.
It Well, the best generation. I always say this. The Gen Zs are the best generations you'll ever experience. Well, Doctor, Doc, it's been a pleasure having you here. My last question to you is, what do you look forward to?
Every day I wake up, I look forward to just being the best version of me, to be honest, the most authentic of me. I'm a person that really admires other people. I don't really suffer envy so much, because for me, I think envy is a wasted emotion. I prefer to admire and say, okay, that person has done very well for themselves in that field and so on. I want to do well for myself always. I don't take disappointment too seriously. I am just like, get up and go to the next thing. And I think you've got one life, only one life. But you can do so much with it. One of the things my friends always said to me is something I said to them many years ago. I'm a person that can just wake up and say, this Saturday is a music day. We're going to listen to music from morning until late at night, because there's so much music in the world. In your lifetime, you never listen to all of it. Just like if you have an opportunity to travel, do, because in your lifetime, you not see the whole world. If you have an opportunity to laugh, because it's so good for your health. I like sometimes to just say, this Saturday is a cooking Saturday for my nephews, my cousins, my friends. And look, let's just try and make as many things that we want to make as much as we can. And just, if it's possible, let's do it. Let's just spend time together. My kitchen table has such great memories for me. If that table could talk, oh my God, it would tell stories, So, no, seriously. So every day I wake up, I say, whatever I'm going to do it so well. I'm a stickler for details. If I say, I like notes, I'm going to do this, because I like to feel productive. That's me. I like to feel productive. But I also like to just rest. I like to exercise, get enough sleep, especially at my age. But even when you're young, please, I started tennis since I was 13. I started going to the gym when I was 22, and it's been a lifetime. So I come from a family of big women, so to always be going to the gym is what has just helped me all my life. I'm not really into dieting and so on. I just prefer to be healthy. What is important is just to be fit, to be healthy, so you can get by. Because when you're working hard, you need your physical strength. People don't realize sometimes you work 14, 16 hours a day. You need your physical strength to support your mental strength. And especially now when we work on laptops and we are writing all the time. So every day for me, if I can help it, I will wake up and say, God, thank you for today. And I am going to smile as much as I can and laugh as much as I can and try to be kind to one or two people every day. I'm a true believer that God, we feel God's presence in the people we know, in the networks. And that's where God shows himself. And sometimes somebody will do something for you and you say to yourself, only God. Only God, because how is it possible that they've done this for me? And I'm hoping that all the time I can try and be that person to another person so they can feel that only God. How is it possible that that person did that for me? Only God. He shows up every day in our connections. That's where he is.
No, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you. I've had a good time. And I hope you enjoyed this process as well. And I hope everybody that was listening enjoyed this episode. And I hope they can share it with somebody. My goal is always, as long as this episode can change one person's life, then I really achieved something in life. So really, Doc, thank you so much.
Thank you, my lady. We need more of these conversations. Thank you. I've truly, truly enjoyed this. Thank you very much. And I wish you all the best for the rest of the year. And have a great Youth Week and Women's Week. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. And for everybody listening, subscribe and share with somebody. And thank you so much. Bye for now.